In today's video, I am predicting Team Canada's lineup for the 2026 Olympics. We have my 5 players here that are locks for Team Canada. Canada has already announced them. These 5 on the top 3 lines, plus Cale Makar on defense. And my extra forwards are Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and my extra defensemen are Shea Theodore and Thomas Harley. When talking about my reserves, I, chose Bennett and Marchand mainly for their playoff runs, but also, to play a team like Team USA with the Tkachuk brothers, JT Miller, you're going to need guys like this in the lineup, and they can definitely do the job. Sam Bennett's a center. I know he hasn't had a great start, but this team, just in case, it doesn't hurt to have centers. And then, on defense, I would keep the same 8. They played very well. There's one switch up that I made, but for the most part, it's the same D-core as last year. Then in net, Kemper's won a Stanley Cup. He's a veteran. You don't want to create goalie controversy. Take a veteran like him there. With the first line, you guys could call me biased, but with McDavid and Reinhart, I'm going with Mark Scheifele. Now, the reason I'm going with Scheif on that top line, McDavid, he plays with Hyman. I think Reinhart does a lot of the things Hyman does, except he's way more skilled, in my opinion. He's a great goal scorer. Mark Scheifele, in a very poor man's way, plays a little bit like Leon Draisaitl with some of the puck protection, with the ability to score and pass, as a dual threat. He's a big body, and, people say he plays no defense. I've seen him lock in when he needs to as a Jets fan, and, he's fast enough. He's not, he plays with Kyle Connor, so you can see that he can keep up with McDavid. McDavid's faster than Kyle Connor, but you need to get Connor McDavid going. You need players he's comfortable with. And like a Draisaitl Hyman type of line, I think, suits it perfectly for this type of a tournament for him. For the second line with Crosby and McKinnon, last year they had Mark Stone for the majority of it. But this year I'm going with a young guy. I'm going with Connor Bedard. The reason I'm putting Connor Bedard there is because, McKinnon, Crosby, Stone was probably our best line. But, Connor Bedard, you're not going to play him anywhere else. I wouldn't want him playing in the bottom 6. But also, this dude's an absolute stud. You have to put him on this team if you can. His injury is a concern. I don't think they're going to snub him off the roster because of this injury. I can see for a game like against the Americans, if we ever play them, we can put a guy like Brad Marchand on that line. We can move Stone up and slide Marchand in the 4th line winger position. A spoiler, I have Stone there. But I really like this combination, but Bedard, he has a lethal shot. He's a Team Canada legend. We've seen him do it for Team Canada on the biggest stage, put up generational numbers, playing with 2 other generational players in Crosby and McKinnon. This line should be the best line at the tourney. For the third line, I'm going with Braden Point at center, Macklin Celebrini on the left, and Mitch Marner on his right wing. Now, Braden Point plays with an elite playmaker in Kucherov. Mitch Marner, elite playmaker, way better defensively than Kucherov. And Macklin Celebrini, obviously absolute stud, great both ways. I think this line has a great combination of all 3 of them being two-way players. The one thing I will say, they are a bit small, so maybe, hopefully you don't get that matched up against like a super heavy line, but all of their sticks are amazing. And one thing I made sure, one of the reasons, Celebrini's not on the first line is because I really like the idea of Team Canada having a left and right shot center on their top 3 lines, a guy who can take a face-off on either side. Face-offs are going to be so important. You have Celebrini Point, you have Scheifele McDavid, you have McKinnon and Crosby, and that solves all your issues right there. And other than this line being small, they're going to be great at forechecking. All 3 of these guys can forecheck great. Braden Point and Celebrini have amazing shots. Mitch Marner, one of the best playmakers in Hawkey, all great two-way players like I mentioned, and Mitch Marner was incredible at last year's tournament. I think Celebrini going to be great. Braden Point hasn't been his best, but I think he'll show up at this tournament. I really like this line as their third line so far. And for the fourth line, I'm going with Nick Suzuki, Brandon Hagel, and Mark Stone. I think I was going to go Marchand on that fourth line with Suzuki and Stone, but I think, they'd just be a little bit too slow. Brandon Hagel's not the fastest guy in the world, but, the only thing about this line, I will say, you don't really have a goal scorer. So you could put Brad Marchand in. Sam Bennett scored a lot of goals in the playoffs. I would have Seth Jarvis here, but, he's injured. I really like this line, though, in terms of a shutdown line. You had Cirelli and Hagel last year. I think they played with Konechny or Jarvis most of the time, so having a guy like Mark Stone, a leader, Suzuki's a captain as well, and then, Brandon Hagel has just been nasty this year. You got a lot of penalty killers, and, they're just a good energy line. There's not a lot of physicality on this team, I will say, but there's a lot of great two-way players here in this lineup. I really like this forward core, so... Again, if you need physicality, you can put Marchand, you can put Bennett. That's why those guys are healthy scratches. But for the defense now, the first pair, Taves and Makar, these guys are just too good together. There's not much to talk about. They're going to be the number one pair. Cale Makar had the flu last year, I think. Maybe it was something else, but... these two amazing in Colorado. The Colorado's having such a good year. Makar's putting up historical numbers. You could say advanced stats don't favor Devon Toews as much as they used to, but it doesn't even matter. These two are just going to be the number one pair. I don't see anyone even coming close. They're going to be able to, break the puck out a lot. They're going to be able to get McDavid, McKinnon. They have the chemistry with McKinnon. And yeah, I just don't see any other pair that's even close to being the number one pair. They're probably the number one pair in the tournament if you count chemistry. And Cale Makar is probably the best defenseman in the world. So I really like how we're stacking up. They were pretty good at last year's tournament, and I'm really excited to see how they do with the bigger ice, especially Cale Makar. For the second pair, I have Josh Morrissey and Colton Parayko. I'm pretty sure this was a pair last year, but Josh Morrissey plays amazingly with Dylan DeMello. Colton Parayko, great at defense, provides a lot more offense than Dylan DeMello, and probably better defense as well. And he's a physical, guy. With our forward core not being as physical, having these guys like Parayko are so useful. Josh Morrissey's going to run the second power play. He got the flu as well. And I think, with hopefully no flu in Italy, it's going to be nice. If the rink's done, of course. But I really like how they look, Parayko and Morrissey together, complement each other well. And, Morrissey and Makar are two small defensemen, so, maybe that's an issue that you could present with this top four. But I think what they lack in height, they make up for in how quick their stick is, how smart they are. And this Canadian team this year is really built off IQ. The Americans, they're out here, doing drugs and zins and stuff. So, maybe they have the advantage when it comes to physicality. But everything else, I think we've got. I really like how Parayko and Morrissey, Taves and Makar all can move the puck up the ice. They can all beat pressure, they can all beat breakouts. All of our forwards can, forward check, back check, maybe except for Bedard. But I'm sure at a tournament like this, he'll do that. And then if not, we have Marchand and Bennett. So it's really, matchup dependent. Nobody is really like the Americans where they're just going to, play no skill hitting hockey. But then again, that's what Gary Bettman makes the no-tax teams do to win a Stanley Cup, like Florida. So Matthew Tkachuk will fit in perfectly with the no-skill Hawkey. I don't know what I'm saying. The third pair can also move the puck. I have Jacob Chychrun, replacing Travis Sanheim, the one replacement. I'm going to start with Drew Doughty, a veteran pick. I think Team Canada will bring Drew Doughty. I think they like Drew Doughty. I think he's very capable of playing at this level. Will he play every game now? I don't think so. I think that's why you bring Harley and Theodore, two guys who can play the right side. Theodore mostly plays the left, same with Harley, but we know they can play both sides. And Drew Doughty, he can provide some physicality, he can provide some veteran calmness. He's a guy who's been in the Olympics before. Not a lot of guys on this team can say that. Not a lot of guys in the NHL can say that they've been to this tournament before. And having a guy like Drew Doughty there is going to be super important. And then, Jacob Chychrun is lighting it up this year. You have, he's great offensively, and he's pretty big. He's good defensively. He's an absolute ox out there. So I really like this bottom D pair. I really like this D core, kind of run it back from last year. I think that's the smart move because, they battled through a lot and, they got the win. So, you don't want to change too much. You're already changing a lot with the forward core. I think having some stability on the D core makes a ton of sense in my personal opinion. But now on to the goalies. At the backup, I have Jordan Binnington. I think he's going to get a game. I think, he's very well could play it if we play America or Sweden or something like that. But I would go with Logan Thompson as the starter. Now, I will say I don't think Team Canada will go with Logan Thompson. They have some sort of vendetta against him. And, Jordan Binnington has earned the right to start. Why would you not start him? He really saved us in that overtime, but also at the same time, it's like you want to play the best guy, and Logan Thompson is 100% the best goalie Team Canada has. Blackwood and Wedgwood are good too, but I will say they play in a very nice Colorado system. Now you can make the same argument for Thompson. He has 6 of the best defensemen, or 6 of the top whatever defensemen in the league as his D core, and they play under Spencer Carberry, and Jordan Binnington has to, deal with Logan Mailloux every night. But I don't know, man. I think you start Thompson. The fact that he's a right-handed goalie too might be pretty useful. All these players are going to be used to all these left shot goalies, but Jordan Binnington has earned the crease. I think they trust him. I think the players are going to trust him with what he did last year. I think his pedigree speaks for itself. Now, I'm not like a Mike Bartner tryhard of I'm going to start Ottinger over Hellebuck because of playoff experience and playoff numbers because I'm an idiot. No, I'm not going to do that. But, Logan Thompson, say what you will about, he doesn't have that type of playoff experience. I don't think this is like the playoffs. I think this is a very different game. And I think especially against weaker teams, having a right-hand catching goalie is going to catch some, of the players who aren't as skilled, aren't as talented as Team Canada and US and Sweden and Finland. It's going to catch them by surprise. And with how good he is, how good he's playing, I think you just ride the hot hand. Darcy Kemper is a good option too. Hopefully it doesn't get down to that. That would be kind of unfortunate for Canada if we have to go to our third string goalie. But I personally would start Logan Thompson, but if I'm being honest, I don't think they will start Logan Thompson. But there is my Team Canada for the 2026 Olympics. I feel like this is pretty cool, using NHL 26 to use highlights so that we don't get copyrighted in the future. But let me know what you guys have as the roster. I'm pretty sure that my roster is going to be a little bit different than everyone else's just because, nobody's really bringing Sam Bennett. It's hard to waste, you have 14 forward spots. It's hard to waste one on Sam Bennett. At the same time, with my roster, you don't have a lot of physicality. And if you're that worried about Team USA, you might have to bring, a guy like Marchand and Bennett so that you can figure some of that stuff out. But I would say, I don't know if we're the favorites, but we did win 4 nations. I'm going to say we're the favorites for now. I really like our team. Hopefully some of our guys can stay healthy. But let me know what you guys have in your Olympic team for Team Canada. So